Dane and Derek is an uncensored, unfiltered podcast. You can find content warnings in the episode description. Thank you for listening. Hey everybody, welcome back to Dane and Derek. This is our usual corner of the internet, and my name is Derek. And with me, as always, is Dane.
Hey, I'm Dane. I realized we haven't introduced ourselves in a minute. So anyway, I write. I'm a law student. I love tabletop RPGs, playing music, all kinds of stuff, and video games, which is what we're about today.
Yes, yeah. And for clarity, in case folks forgot, I'm a film guy, but I've been trying to say writer and director because I think, Dane, my feelings on me calling myself a writer have maybe changed. Something
Ooh.
to interrogate later.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have to circle back.
But
Okay.
today we're both gamers.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. This is an oldie but a goodie.
Yeah.
We have done this episode at least once, maybe twice.
I think we've done it once a season.
Yeah, something to that extent.
But yeah, this time it's a little different because I think last time we've done it where we've picked like multiple games.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this time we've pretty much only been playing one game each. Right?
When we scheduled to do this episode, yes. Okay. I am now up to 3.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, I'll go first and just say what game I'm playing, and then you can say what games you're playing, and then we'll just kind of roll on into it. How about that?
Mm-hmm. Sounds good.
So I finally have been playing Tears of the Kingdom.
Nice.
After 2.5 months of having it installed on my Switch, I finally opened it up like 3 weeks ago.
Very nice.
And it's been great.
Yep.
What have you been playing?
So I recently finished playing a run through and a season of Diablo 4.
Wow.
So that it's recent enough that it's still relevant. It still feels like something I've been playing. Mm-hmm. And then I don't exactly know how far through it I am. I at least 3/4 of the way through Jedi Survivor.
Wow.
And then I just started playing Baldur's Gate 3 a little bit.
Oh, really?
And interestingly enough, of the 3 games, I have only played like 2 hours of Baldur's Gate 3, and I have 1,000 more things to say about it than the other 2.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's interesting. Maybe, man, depending on your thoughts, I'm curious, because I also have Baldur's Gate 3, so maybe we should do some co-op sometime.
That would be fun. Yeah. Yeah.
But
why don't you start with Tears of the Kingdom? Because I honestly, like, my whole conversation about what I've been playing, they're all tied together. So I can't really talk about Diablo without talking about the other 2 and vice versa.
So Tears of the Kingdom, let's see. I've only played one other Zelda game, and that's Breath of the Wild.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so it was a logical jump to play Tears of the Kingdom. I think I kind of hit a wall with Elden Ring. Which is why we haven't done a follow-up to our Elden Ring episodes, because it's been so long since I've played, and every time I log on, I just get whooped, and I kind of got tired of it. Like, I really don't have the time to get good at it. So Tears of the Kingdom has sort of been the game. I do want to play Jedi Survivor, but I kind of felt I should play Tears of the Kingdom first. But yeah, going back to that, Tears of the Kingdom, blah, blah, blah. Man, it's been great. I'll basically I've made sure to make sure that I have at least 5 to 7 hours or more during the weekend just to sit and play the game.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I've scheduled time where I have nothing to do but sit down and play Tears of the Kingdom, and I haven't done that since I was in high school. And it has been truly great because there's just so much to do that I just get immersed. And the next thing I know, it's 10 p.m. at night and I need to go to bed.
That is kind of amazing.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I've been really trying to take advantage of that because I know I'm not going to have, 8 hours on a Sunday forever. But for now, when I have 8 hours on a Sunday, heck yeah, I'm going to play Tears of the Kingdom.
Absolutely.
And because it's like, if I'm not playing Tears of the Kingdom, I'm either going on a date with my girlfriend or I'm watching movies on my own and studying them. And so Tears of the Kingdom is sort of like the one thing where I don't have to study film and I'm just like alone. But I could also spend time with my girlfriend and talk to her while I'm playing Tears of the Kingdom if like we wanted to chat. So it's like a great like thing to be doing that I can kind of do in addition to just being an experience that I've really enjoyed. I mean, like, are you going to play Tears of the Kingdom, Dane?
So here's my experience with Tears of the Kingdom, and I'll talk a little bit about Zelda in general because I've talked about it a little bit. I have not played through many Zelda games. Basically, it's Breath of the Wild and the original. That's the only
Right.
ones I've ever like beaten.
Mm-hmm.
The others I play a little bit of and then bounce off of to varying or greater or lesser degrees. Breath of the Wild is really special to me, and the vibe of it is lonely and beautiful and still lighthearted and joyful and sorrowful and truly epic and goofy and not self-aggrandizing while also being very grand. It's kind of, in my opinion, a pretty seminal work like the original.
Yeah.
There is no, it's not much surprise to me personally that those two are the ones I would have been able to latch onto. And so I was very excited about Tears of the Kingdom because I was like, okay, this is roughly Breath of the Wild 2. There's definitely seemingly some interesting things. The sky is cool. Like all of this seems very neat. And then my partner Gracie, she downloaded it and she booted it up first. And I watched her play it for about 10 minutes and I bounced off without even playing it.
Oh, dang.
And it has to do with the whole sticking mechanism.
Yeah.
It's the thing of like I would watch her in combat, stop, pause, stick something together, fight, and I was like, maybe she's doing this weird. And then I saw my brother play it and he did the exact same thing. And then it's the same thing for all the like sticking together, crafting, building stuff. And I was just like, nah. Like it's too frantic. The thing I love about Breath of the Wild and the original is that the game starts melting away for me. And I'm just in the experience. It is about emptiness. They are games about space and about discovery and about melancholy and empty things. And it's not to say there isn't some of that in Tears of the Kingdom. Like it's not all gone or anything.
Yeah.
But that frenetic gameplay that I experienced secondhand, I couldn't like the things that I loved about it were no longer reinforced by every mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, that's okay. I don't need it. Like I have not engaged with the vast majority of the Zelda canon. So I can, this one does not have to be either,
Yeah. I think there's definitely, it's a little bit different because yeah, you're right. You're like scrolling through your inventory so much to do things, and it's kind of a lot.
Which, to be fair, I don't want to like say I don't think Tears of the Kingdom is bad.
No, it's just
not
different.
At all. It's just different. It's just a different game, and the things I liked about Breath of the Wild are diminished by that.
Yeah.
And I'm not even opposed to like frequent menu use in games. As I will say later. It just, when I came to this game, I was hoping for a particular thing, and it was not there. So,
Yeah, no, I feel that. I think it's funny, like the building aspect of it is the part of the game that I am the least interested in. And it's a pretty essential part of the game. It kind of feels like they took what people were doing on YouTube and kind of made it into the game. Like it's now a lot easier to like bomb shield fly than it is in Breath of the Wild, because you can stick a bomb fruit onto your shield, jump, bounce, fly up, whatever. I think the best part about the game for me has just been the flying. I literally only play that game to jump from high places and fly around.
Which is incredible. Like
Yes.
I when I look at the game, I'm like, this is amazing, and like the crafting mechanics are very cool. Like I don't not taking away from that. It's yeah
Right. No,
yeah.
yeah. I feel you. I think crafting is cool, but it is not why I play most of these games. Um, I think I found that I've used it very much as like I fuse a couple of things in my inventory, and then once they break, they break. I don't really
Mm-hmm.
use it too often unless it's with arrows, which I think is probably the coolest part is using it on arrows because it feels like, oh yeah, you're like sticking an explosive fruit on your arrow and launching it. Like that's like kind of cinematic in a way. It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
movie-esque.
Yeah.
But I think like so far it's been really interesting because they really don't tell you. I feel like Tears of the Kingdom tells you less than Breath of the Wild. And I think for me that's been the most interesting part.
Hmm.
And what's kind of sucked me in is just the fact that like once you figure out a couple of hacks, it makes like navigating the like layers of the map really easy. Or not easy, but like easier because there's like 3 layers of the map.
It makes it
And
enjoyable.
yeah, and I think like what's fun about it is like I think like kind of like how in Jedi Fallen Order you can like zip line around and like
Mm-hmm.
using force powers really feels like you're using the force.
Yeah.
I think like the flying mechanics are like really good. Um and like like they're interesting because they're not perfect. And I really enjoy that. And I think like um what I've kind of found interesting is like being able to kind of like soar between those like aspects of the game and kind of start to figure out things. I haven't done like anything of the main story. I've basically just been like not grinding for stuff, but like exploring cool rocks that fall out of the sky.
Mm-hmm.
I only recently finally got my inventory upgraded, and I only recently like unlocked my first memory thing. I
Hmm.
think right before I was playing Tears of the Kingdom, I had been replaying Breath of the Wild, and I think like to your point, like what's great about Breath of the Wild is like, yeah, you're this lone hero, sort of like trying to figure out who he is again.
Mm-hmm.
And in Tears of the Kingdom, you are the guy.
Yeah.
And I think that is like such a different aspect of it. You are the guy on a quest. Everyone knows who you are. You know who you are. And so in a weird way, like you're more driven to do the story, whereas like I think Breath of the Wild, you don't have to be a Link that does that saves Zelda. Like
Mm-hmm.
your Link can just choose to forego that. And I think in Tears of the Kingdom, you very much are kind of trying to figure out like what happened. And I think like what's been fun is just been the mechanics. I don't know about the story yet. Um, so yeah, I'm like 20 hours in, maybe 20 plus hours in.
Hmm.
I think my favorite things to kind of I'm still wearing the first set of armor you find.
Hmm.
Um, I have a bunch of other armor, but I really like that first set of armor, that like archaic half shirt thing.
Yeah.
Um, and then on top of that, I pretty much stick to just using swords as swords. I fuse things onto it to make swords. I really avoid most other weapon types unless it's a boulder hammer, which is really useful and sometimes really interesting when you have to mine things. I think some of the powers are really cool. I think my least favorite is um is fuse actually because I don't like the menu. I don't like some of the menus. I'm sure it'll get patched, but
Mm-hmm.
um I think right now what's been fun is just the going between like the 3 landscapes and sort of exploring. I think I'm kind of hoping I'll kind of sink my teeth into more of the story later because I think I need to sink my teeth into the story for me to really want to finish it. But so far, yeah, I like the soaring element. I just did a cool like glide test thing, and I got a sick glide suit with wings, and um, now I can fly easier. Um, it's interesting. There's a lot more that they lay for you to do that is somehow related to the story, but they don't quite tell you it. You just kind of like stumble into it as you go. But yeah, I don't know. I think like it lived up to the hype for me, and I'll be curious how things progress as I get farther. But let's move into your three games, because I'm really curious, because I've never played Diablo, but I know it's like the basis of all roguelikes, and I've played Jedi Fallen Order, loved it. I really want to play Jedi Survivor, and Baldur's Gate 3 I played pretty avidly in when it was in beta. I don't
Mm-hmm.
even know if it's still out. When it was doing like the whatever limited release or whatever they do now, a pre-release, I forget. I was
Yeah.
playing it with a friend of mine from college, and we put in like 30 or 40 hours into the game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so like I played a significant amount when it was kind of, jank, but I'm curious how it is now, and I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Okay, so Diablo. Let's start there. So I got Diablo basically the day it came out. Um and then
Hmm.
slowly played it for the last like most of the summer. It's been my game. Um and I had my good time with it. I liked Diablo 3. I didn't go I've never played any further back than that. And the thing about it is that it is better in some ways than its predecessor. Like I actually think its story is surprisingly interesting. Um its villains are oddly nuanced, and you actually get to play an important role, and which is not usual. Normally you're like a glorified very violent messenger boy. Um you know,
Yeah.
and so like there was a lot more to it, and like the heroic characters also had a lot more going on too. They were very flawed, and I was like, oh, that's kind of surprising and interesting. But it's super easy to ignore, because that's not the point of the game. The point of the game is to grind and make numbers go up and go on the Skinner box, and so it doesn't feel quite as good. You always have to be online. The store menus pop up in your face all of the time. And so it was an enjoyable enough experience. Um and so like that's what I needed. It was, and it's like still probably going to be a great game I pop into every now and then to sit on the couch, listen to a podcast and play a game. Like very good for decompression, like all that good stuff. Um so I played that for a while, and I have my qualms with it, right? Like, and it just felt very emblematic of gaming as it currently stands, with microtransactions and coming out a little too very unfinished, you know? Um, as you said, they'll patch it later. Um, and then last week I got sick.
Mm.
And I had downloaded and just started touching Jedi Survivor. I liked the last one. My opinions on Jedi Fallen Order are basically it's it's your first Dark Souls um meets some Uncharted situation
Yep.
going on. Your
Yeah.
Last of Us, like it's those two things meet. And then you put in the Star Wars, right?
You put in the Star
You put
Wars.
in the Star Wars and it finishes. It comes together, you know,
It
just
comes together.
mwah, love it.
Yeah, like building a
And
lightsaber.
yeah, and like a lot of Fallen Order felt great, you know.
Yeah.
The lightsaber turning on felt good. The force powers felt good, you know. And in my opinion, like it was a pretty good Star Wars story as far as Star Wars stories go.
Yeah.
The pacing's kind of weird because it's a game, and so it's a little hard. The pacing, it has to be different, but
Right.
it's still trying to be a movie, so the beats sometimes just feel off. Um, you know, and in my opinion, I like Cal Kestis as a character pretty fine. You know, I like the
Yeah.
actor who portrays him.
Hmm.
Um, he doesn't have no pathos or whatever. But when I played Fallen Order, I was like, this game's about the wrong person. Like when I played it, I was like, this should be about the second sister. Like you should be playing the second sister.
Yeah.
And this should be her redemption story. That's what this should be. That would be so much more interesting.
Yeah.
Like that's what I thought. And I had a great time with it. And I was like, this is a fun time. It is not the best game I've ever played in any of the genres it's inspired by. Like
Right.
Uncharted and Prince of Persia are better at like the action platforming thing in 3D, right? I had way more fun with those. If I really want a Souls-like, I'll just go find a From Software game. Like, it's fine,
Yeah.
And if I want a Star Wars story, I'll probably go pick up one of the movies or the shows every time. I'll go to the comics before I'll go to the to Jedi Fallen Order. But I had a good time with it. So I looked at Survivor and I was like, I think I'll probably end up playing this eventually. Who knows when? It was on sale. Specifically the like collector's edition was on sale, and it was cheaper than the main version, like the standard version. So I just picked up that, and I was like, well, what comes with it? It's like on paper, it's like $10, $20 more. Like, what are they selling? Han and Luke's outfit that looks weird as shit on him. And like the like Luke and Anakin's shared lightsaber that Rey also uses, like as like a cosmetic, but Cal's lightsaber is a double-bladed split blade thing. It's weird. So it all looks weird. So I was like, well, this certainly reminds me of Diablo, but I was like, whatever. Okay, moving on. And so I've been playing it. And I've been having the exact same amount of joy I had last time. Like, Derek, I know you loved Fallen Order. You're gonna love this. You are. It's exactly this. It's just more, right?
It's
like
just
I was
more
like,
of the same. It's Uncharted meets Last of Us meets Souls-liked meets Star Wars.
Exactly. It is exactly that thing. It is exactly what it says on the tin, and I don't even think it's falling prey to the problem that like I think Portal 2 prayed for, where it was like, this is just more Portal. And everyone's like, oh, that's great. But it's a little bloated in a way Portal 1 was just like clean and to the point. This feels about as long, if not maybe just a little bit more to the point than Fallen Order did. So it's just another one. Like, and I'm like, okay, this is fun, and like there's some light role playing choices you can make. Like, like I put together my Beskar steel and Wookiee wood lightsaber and made it green because A, I like the green lightsaber, and B, spoilers, I guess, Cal and the Night Sister are getting together in her magic screen. So I was like, oh, maybe he feels like extra safe with like the green color of space magic around. So he made his lightsaber green instead of his master's blue because he's connected to her. So like there's a little bit you can do there. You can give him a fun mullet and make him look like like Chuck Norris if you want. Like it's a pretty fun game, and what I will say is I've played it mostly while I was sick last week, and the thing I really noticed about it is I was like, why? Because I actually should say during that period of time I was enjoying it more than the last one, and I was like, why is this? I know objectively this is exactly the same, and the reason is, when I feel like shit, two of my comfort things are the Souls games and Star Wars movies. Like, those are things I reach to feel better when I am unwell, or to like comfort me while I am getting better. And so it was both things at the same time. And I was like, oh, cool. I'm there for that.
Yeah. They played
and there's a couple of like fun updates, right? Like there's in the first one, there's the dual wielding, the double bladed, and the single blade, right? They expanded to blade and blaster, which I get the vibe that you're really gonna like. Though, funnily enough, the mechanic for it, they lifted straight from Hyper Light Drifter, like 100%. Because in Hyper Light Drifter, you have a number of shots with your blaster, and then you have to do melee strikes to recharge the blaster, and then you can fire again. It's exactly that.
Nice.
which is a
Okay.
fun mechanic. And I'm like, oh, neat, cool. This is cool.
Yeah.
And then they have the crossguard lightsaber, which has been my standout favorite edition.
Wow.
I always kind of like the like heavy, really solid like block. The attacks are slow, but massive chunks off the health bar.
Yeah.
Um,
Huh. Kylo
so
Ren walked so Jedi Survivor could fly.
yeah, no, I think it's probably 5% better, maybe.
Nice. Hey, I mean that's good because I think, yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Like I would have given Fallen Order like a B, and I think I'd give this like a B plus. Like it's really good work. I really like it. It doesn't wow me in certain ways. And it's still like this gigantic budget game that when it came out had a ton of bugs and really needed to be fixed and was kind of unfinished. And there's still cosmetic sales attached to it, and that like
Right.
the microtransactions and the little things and all of it, right? Like it's all still there.
Yeah.
It was shipped as a unfinished game and is suffering from these things, right? So I'm doing all of this, and then Gracie gets 100%. She is like down into the well of Baldur's Gate 3, as like deep as it goes.
Huh.
And so I'm playing with her. She's like, okay, please come play with me and our roommate Allie, or our former roommate Allie, and her boyfriend Guy, and they're wonderful people. So we sat down and we're doing like a full party. Like we've got like
Yeah,
our
that's
melee,
incredible.
we've got our kind of roguey dex person, we've got a
Oh,
healer
the
druid, and
dream.
I'm playing a mage, like arcane mage, like classic, like um you know, and it's super fun, and so like, but what I want to point out is I've played about 2 hours of it. I played it split screen on someone else's PC because it's not out on PlayStation 5 and there's no cross compatibility, so that's not happening. So my experience with this game is limited. It is about like it is so much better as a game than Survivor or Diablo 4.
Oh,
Like
okay.
yeah, they had their alpha pre-release all of that time, but it is officially shipped and it is just solidly made. There's like, you don't go in and suddenly you're like, "Oh god, do I have to buy something?" Like once you're in the game, you're in the game. The game works. It works well. It's fun to play. It's exciting. There's multiple ways you can play it. Like we play it kind of, and it reminds me more of the days when I played a little bit of MOBAs.
Yeah.
Um, and it feels like a MOBA by way of D&D without the horrible competitiveness. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that's awesome. And like I already know the mechanics. Like I've got a sorcerer and I know how to build it, right? Like it's so cool. Like all of that is fucking rad, And Gracie is also playing it by herself, like it's Dragon Age, and that's fucking cool
Mm.
too, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I can't wait for it to come out on the PlayStation 5 at the beginning of September so I
Yep.
can play it solo. And so she and I
Hmm.
can do a run together in the living room on the big screen in the like on the couch with blankets, and because otherwise we're in our office and stuff and it's less comfortable. But like then we get to play with our friends, right? Like because
Mm-hmm.
the game is really, really good and it is complete. Um,
Mm.
but I don't have much to say about it in terms of on its own terms because it is. I haven't played enough of it yet.
Gotcha.
To be able to say anything much about it in that regard. Um, and so what I'm actually gonna have, but I have a lot of thoughts about it. That the other two, I only have sort of surface level mechanical thoughts. With this, I'm like, this is impacting things in ways I can already see. Like, for example, have you heard about the backlash about Baldur's Gate 3?
There was something I just saw it, like a bunch of YouTubers reviewing it. I didn't click into it. What's going on?
So the backlash is not coming from players on the whole. The
Uh huh.
backlash is coming from developers. They're literally saying, do not expect games to be like this. You're setting the bar too high, Baldur's Gate 3. And that's part of the reason why I can't talk about it without talking about the previous 2 games I've played. The previous 2 games are similarly gigantic tentpole game releases.
Right.
And they released worse and are generally just less pleasant to play games because of the marketing and the transactions surrounding them and the way that they were relatively unpolished upon release. And so when you compare to Baldur's Gate, it's there is a commentary about the state of video game industries, at least in the AAA sphere, right? Like,
Yeah.
there are like, I would describe them as like your AA games. That's kind of like your Hades, and then your like indie games, and those seem to be fine. But like, it made me think back to when we were in like middle school and high school, basically.
Yeah.
When I would go to the GameStop, I'd pick up a game, I'd bring it home, I'd play it, and that was it. The devs got basically one real shot at the game. You know, and now it's this thing where they can release something and fix it. You know?
Yeah.
And I don't love that. That feels weird to me. Like, I know that games are a little bit more evolutionary and they can be fixed, and they probably and they should be, for like, because they can, right? Like, even really good games had bugs, and if you could go back and fix them, well, you know, why not? But like, that feels to me like going to a movie, and what if there was just like a really crappy edit in the middle of the movie, and they said to you, yeah, don't worry about it, but why don't you come back to the theater next week?
Yeah.
And
we'll fix it when it comes out on DVD.
Yeah, or something, right? Like,
yeah.
It feels really disrespectful, and it makes me think about games as art versus games as service versus, you know, like, games can be kind of weird in that artistic way, where it's like, sometimes a game will come out, like, take a Hades or Hyper Light Drifter, where it's like, this is our work here. Think about it. And other times, like, let's say Fortnite or Dota 2 or whatever, it's like, this is a place to come play with your friends. It's not art, but it's also different. So we're going to be constantly tinkering with it. It's not really ever finished, you know?
Yeah.
That's kind of like, have you ever been to Meow Wolf?
No.
It's like an art installation sort of thing.
Yeah.
And they kind of update it, or it's kind of like going to the museum. Like, well, we have a new exhibit.
Yeah.
And the old one left.
Yeah.
You know, it feels more like that, you know? And so it's stuff like that where it just makes me think about that. And then there's this other side of it, and this is probably the part where I think you're going to come back into the conversation, because I know I've talked for a bit here. There's a lot of talk around Wizards of the Coast and D&D lately, right? Like, with their absolute shitty way they treated independent third-party developers with the whole licensing debacle in the early part of the year.
Yeah.
And then the D&D movie, and with Baldur's Gate 3, they're clearly doing like a more multimedia push, and there's tons of reporting about how Hasbro and Wizards feel like D&D is under-monetized. And so, and I see what they mean. Like, I don't like this, but it makes sense, right? There's a thing about D&D, which is, you go to the game store, you buy the player's handbook, the DM's guide, and the monster manual, and you never need to buy another D&D product again, and you have the thing, right? That's not very sticky. Like, from a pure corporate standpoint, they don't like that. I think that's bad. I think that's like a gross way of thinking about it. Like, my God, like, how dare? Like, how dare a product not make the maximal amount of cash, right? And so, in response to this, they're developing one D&D, which I think is probably more accurately 5.5 edition.
Yeah.
And when I looked at it, because I've like been messing around with it in my own game and like really keeping up on it, because I get excited. I was like, the new edition, like, this is what happened when I when 5e came out, I was really paying attention to it. There's a standardization that is going on in 1 D&D to all the classes. Like all classes get their subclass at 3rd level, the end, period. And there's like a thing where I thought about, I was like, why? That's kind of weird and lame, and that's not how, like, in lore, how a warlock or a cleric should work, certainly. You should know who your god is right away. You should know who you sold your soul to right away, And so there was that. And then there's this talk of their virtual table. And at first I thought that was just an attempt to fucking kill Roll20. And it still is.
Yeah.
But then I played Baldur's Gate. And Baldur's Gate is just 5e. Like, that's the system that's running it. It's a little simplified. It's a little smoothed around the edges. There's some other things going on for sure. But, you roll the dice, you add your proficiency bonus, you add your stat, you do, it's all of it, right? It's all there, right? Like I said, I'm playing a sorcerer. I didn't even need to think about it. It was all there. And I played it for a couple hours, and my immediate thought was, oh my God, their virtual tabletop is going to work. And then my next thought was, I don't think I will ever hold a 6th edition D&D book. Not unless I shell out a ton of money to get a special edition printed copy. Because I was looking at this and I was like, okay, let's just imagine for a second. Like, okay, the train looks a little worse and everybody kind of looks like minis and the animations aren't so smooth and but it's custom. And the DM put all this stuff down and whatnot. And character building was this smooth and easy, and you didn't even have to do your own math. You just clicked and, like, boom, there goes your fireball spell, right?
Right.
It does it calculates the area of effect for you, like it does all of it, right? That's gonna be sticky, like you make your account, you're like, okay, I'll and I pay $5 a month. Well, all my minis are in there, and I bought the digital books, and I got all this digital terrain, and I was like, they're making a virtual tabletop so that instead of $50 from you once every 5 years, and then maybe $50-$60 a year from somebody who buys every book that they release a year, which is a smaller market, of course, they get $120 from you every year.
Right.
And they're
at a base.
Right. And I was like, this is going to work because Baldur's Gate is so much fucking fun. And it's not infinite. Right?
Yeah.
It's finite.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this is bad. I'm really not. I think the corporate stuff's bad, but that's just because I think corporate stuff's bad. But like a virtual game, I've played virtual games. I love playing virtual games. They're great. Like, what sucks is that I'm just like, okay, this is the change. This is what they're doing. And but there's going to be a limitation, right? In this virtual tabletop, you're going to be locked into the mechanics rules as written.
Yeah.
Like this past weekend, I played in my home game, and I basically, for reasons, made everybody at the party who wasn't already a Dragonborn kind of mechanically a Dragonborn, and the ones who did already have Dragonborn stats got more.
Right.
I don't know if that will be an option. Like, I love hacking D&D and stuff. It
Yeah.
can be a tinkering hobby as much as it is a game playing hobby and a storytelling hobby. And at a virtual table, I don't know how well you're going to be able to do that.
No, yeah. They want you to play the game their way.
They want you to play it right.
Yeah.
And, like currently our friend Sam Cast is playing in my home game,
Mm-hmm.
and we're playing
Yeah.
5e. And Sam and I went and bought the 5e starters set the day it came out.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And I was just sort of sitting there while I was playing, or after I was playing Baldur's Gate, where I was like, when that happened, even as a kind of a young man, like barely 18, 19-ish, I thought I was going to get to do that forever. Like that. Drive to a game store, get something in my hands. This particular game, this game with its additions. And maybe not.
Yeah.
And that made me sad. And it's going to be okay. Like, times change, things change, like. But it did make me a little sad. And I wondered about how it would. You and I have kind of like a weirdly mixed old school, not quite as old school perspective on this. I wonder how it would feel for someone who was playing from the 80s.
Oh yeah. I
You
mean,
know?
right. Yeah. Because I mean, yes, you and I have been playing 20 plus years,
Yeah,
but
roughly.
But someone who's been playing since the 80s has been playing like 50 something plus years.
Right.
Like that's 50 years of buying books and getting new editions and smelling the pages as you open it up and see the adventure physically in front of you.
Right. And
And
like,
now,
are you going to get to buy the art? Like, that's part of it, right? For me, it's
yeah,
like you
yeah,
open the monster manual and it's always this question is like, I know what a silver dragon roughly looks like. It's going to have those pulled back horns and it's going to have that frill because it's always had that
yeah,
since, 1977. But how are they going to do it this time?
hmm
But in a VTT, like, they'll just give you a silver dragon mini and it's digital one, but it's its own thing, but it's not. I didn't get an art book too, and I don't know, like,
yeah,
I, as much as I've loved doing virtual games, I've also fallen back in love with playing around the table, and I don't
uh-huh,
think I'm ever going back on that again
yeah,
because so much of my life is digital, you know, and that's not bad, but I need some things that are analog,
yeah,
and
yeah. I know
D&D
exactly.
is such an analog thing. Right?
Yeah,
Like
no, yeah.
playing digitally, even with virtual tabletops right now, is still kind of a hassle. It's janky and you can't see people's faces and all of this. But playing Baldur's Gate made me feel like this is gonna smooth out the edges, right? It's
Yeah,
gonna smooth these things out real nice. And I think it's gonna change the hobby. I think you're gonna
yeah,
get your VTTRPG things, and then you're gonna have your TTRPG things, you know?
hmm
And, you and I have been talking about the OSR a lot more and more as we go through all of this show. And I think that it's going to look a lot more like that. Like,
mm,
that the OSR might grow a bit, but that the tabletop version of the game is going to feel more and more OSR.
yeah,
It's going to feel more counterculture-y.
yeah.
Within a counterculture, to be clear, but like,
Yes,
uh,
yes,
the
yeah.
counter to the counterculture. um
No, yeah, I feel you. I mean, like I was telling someone like the hardest part about playing D&D right now is that like I was talking to a friend about this who said the exact same thing, and he's also been playing like 20 something years, like as long as we have, Dane.
mhm.
And he said the exact same thing. He said like too much of it is now virtual, too much of it is on screens. Like when like I've memorized these books, like I just want to be able to use my brain and flip through pages and write things down with a pencil. Like I don't want to have any screens, no phones. no computers, like no fancy tech, just theater of the mind and some paper and my friends. And like that kind of stuff, yeah, is slowly dissipating, which I know we've talked about doing an episode on like table dynamics or like this kind of like homebrew stuff. And as things develop with D&D 5.5 or whatever it ends up being, D&D 1, we should probably eventually maybe talk more about this in like a more, maybe this is one of the series we do next year.
Yeah.
The pen and paper of it all, because I feel like we're both very much in the camp of we must play pen and paper by any means necessary.
Yeah, like I'll play some online games, and I've done some great online games, and I don't think I'll fully stop doing that. But I think for me, more and more, I think tabletop RPGs are going to become more and more for me a tabletop thing.
Yeah.
That the digital will be the exception. And because like right now at my table, no phones, no tablets, no computers.
Mm-hmm.
And next game I may need to allow a single tablet at the table. In order to maybe use a PDF game, but I do not intend to change that rule. And at the end of it all, as I think we should probably close out this episode soon,
Yeah.
I would heartily recommend Baldur's Gate 3. It's fucking awesome. And I actually think from a video game perspective, it's a paragon of like, look at this. This is what like AAA gaming can be. It can be just like, boom, here it is. No microtransactions needed. It's awesome. Enjoy, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
like I would compare it to like the Barbieheimer sort of it all, in the sense of like movies. It's a movie. It's not part of a cinematic universe. Oppenheimer's on film. Barbie is just like fun popcorn affair. Like enjoy your popcorn and soda. You're at the movies. Enjoy, right? Like that is what Baldur's Gate 3 feels like to me. It's like, boom, you love these like long slog RPGs with tons of story and like fun mechanics that you can play by yourself. Here it is. You like playing with your friends? Here it is. Like it's awesome. It's like a very pinnacle game to me. Like I'm like, this is kick ass. And then it just, because of some things I'm aware of in this other realm, it also has this weird ominous foreboding to me.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword because it feels like a prototype for the virtual tabletop.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's very interesting.
Definitely. Well, that was that, folks. This is what we've been playing. This is the existentialism you come here for every 2 weeks.
Were you expecting just game wrecks, or did you expect me to opine about and sound very old? I'm only 27, folks.
Yeah, but we're some old gamers.
Yeah. Have you heard the term grognards?
No. That sounds great, though. Are we grognards?
I don't think we are. I think we are the scions of grognards. So the long and short of grognard is the term means roughly grumbler in French, and it's the nickname of a particular group of soldiers in Napoleon's army. Here, we're going to get a history lesson here at the end. I'm doing like a really rush job of it. So the grognards got their name grumblers due to the fact that they were like Napoleon's elite fighting force. So they supposedly, because they were so good, got the privilege of complaining with no repercussions. So they got the term grognard. Now, so like set all of that aside. Then you have to remember that D&D and like chainmail comes from wargaming in the late 60s, early 70s, right? That's where all of this starts, right? With like Dan Arneson, Gary Gygax, all of it, right? And they started by playing a game about the Civil War. That was their starter game. But they twisted it to play most of them did that, but there was a French version about the Napoleonic Wars. And all of this starts because they read one rule in that original book that from a game from like the 1800s that said, keep in mind anything may be attempted. That's the one rule. And from that, they took a different turn of like, what if the battles could go another way? And that's where the campaign came from.
Right.
And then they started being like, okay, well, what if there was magic and like they were like Lord of the Rings armies, and that's where chainmail comes from. And then they were like, what if we focus on one character? Boom, we're in like D&D ish, like, right. So that's the thing. And so because it all comes from this Napoleonic Wars stuff, people have taken to calling the people who were there for that, who are the people who like, we used Thaco and we fucking liked it, the like the people who grumble and are older and like very reminiscent about a different time in the hobby, the people who like don't go adventuring without a 10-foot pole, even in 5e.
Yeah.
They're grognards, right? They're our old guard. They're our elite, right? And it's an homage to the original game that all of this sort of comes from, being French, right?
Huh.
So you and I, our grognards are honestly disappearing. The people who really did play those games, right?
Right.
And then there's the generation like your dad who taught you and my uncle who taught me, who's like right after them. They're the people who started on D&D, right? Like they had the red box in the late 70s, early 80s.
Right.
Gotcha. And they're kind of grognardy, and then there's us, right? Like, like we're kind of the weirdos who are young, but we were not raised on even 3rd edition.
Right. Yeah.
You were raised on 2nd and I was raised on 1st.
Right. Yeah.
Like, so like we're like the scions of, we're the grandchildren of the grognards.
Gotcha.
More or less,
yeah, I was
right?
trying to think of a way to phrase it, and I was like, oh, there's so many ways you could turn this bad.
We're the whingers or something, right? Like, we're not grumbling, we're whiners.
Yeah, we're the young guard.
Right.
The generation that has a fascination with the generation several generations ago.
Yeah, like we're like, I don't know, like, and that's kind of what the OSR is, right? The OSR is often the home of like the grognards and the
man
and us, right? Like you and me, who have memories of both and have a lot of love. Mm-hmm. And that's not to say that grognards don't like 5e or anything like that, but like, like my whole rant there about Baldur's Gate and my feelings about that's a very grognardian way of looking about it, right? Where I'm saying basically, I looked my friends in the eye and I liked it, I don't want to have a screen between me and them, right? And in the same way that I do think that like the grognards kind of have a point, right? Like where it's like, well, this was our like really cool niche thing. It's like people who are really there for like punk rock in the underground of Britain in the early 70s, right? Like where it's like, no, we had a special thing, and here, please listen to my LP, right? And I think this is often the responsibility of a lot of different kinds of artists and hobbyists of various kinds, is keeping alive certain sparks, right? Like when, say, My Chemical Romance, I don't know if they do this or not, but if they're kind of like a neo-punk rocky fashion punk, whatever you want to call them, sort of band. And when they play a song by the Sex Pistols, I think that's very important.
Yeah.
Right? In the same way that, like, it's important to me that at some point I make sure that my friends who I've brought into the hobby, they're going to sit down and they're going to play 1st edition with me. And they're going to enjoy the Thaco and like it, it's the thing of like the hobby. It's a hobby in the same way that like knitting is a hobby. And yeah, we have sewing machines, and we have these other things, but it's worth the thing it is also, you know, like people are coming to the hobby in bigger ways than ever before with 5th edition and everything, like, and that's amazing, right? And so it feels very fresh, right? But at the same time, you know, the people who taught us, they're in their 50s, on the young side, you know?
Yeah.
And the Grognards who played the war games first and developed it are, there's fewer and fewer of them. Our hobby is actually, you know, pushing 60. It's not, you know, that young anymore.
Yeah.
Neither are video games, really. And I think it's worth enjoying that fact, right? Like, I think it's worth preserving all of it. And I think that's another reason I have so much love and respect for the OSR more and more.
Man, are we gonna become OSR guys officially?
Oh, I think I am.
I'll put it this way. I mean, are we gonna play one, like a real one? We've talked about it, playing like old school centrals or through Sunken Lands or what was it, World Beyond Numbers?
Yeah, I actually think I just picked up Shadow Dark, and I think that's going to be the one I'm going to do.
Never heard of that.
It's super good. It reminds me of Five Torches Deep. I would sincerely suggest it. And speaking of OSR and fucking old school essentials, the Dolmenwood Kickstarter is out right now. I don't know if this is going to be still going when I go up, but like, if it is, please go support that game. It's fucking cool as hell. Anyways,
yeah, you should send me a link and we'll put it in, even if it comes out later.
Yeah, even if it comes out later, you should go check it out. Like, it's super cool. It's like old school essentials by way of like Eastern Europe. It's like European like folklore, like really gets into the folklore side of it. It's super cool. Anyways, this has been a much longer episode than I expected, and I think it's because I did 2 giant rants.
You know,
sorry,
I think
very
you
talky.
needed this today.
I did need this today.
I think you needed this today. Like, I know we kind of came into the first part of this a little bit tired and frazzled, at least for me, and so I'm glad that we kind of got our stride back. So
absolutely, same here.
Well, with that, folks, think about video games. Think about the analog of it, and think about what you enjoy with it.
Yeah, and I guess what I'm kind of advocating for here is like, please go do something the not easy way and the not like corporate way, but like, you know, like fucking go play a guitar and play the song that your teacher taught you, or like if your grandma taught you how to make the most kick ass rhubarb pie, please go make that. Like, it doesn't have to be this. It doesn't have to, but like, just touch your roots for a second.
Yeah, touch your roots. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Okay. With that, hope you all have some fun root touching. That sounds horrible.
That doesn't sound great.
Go outside and touch some tree roots. Put your bare feet on some thick tree roots.
Oh, goodness.
Feel that energy.
That is the worst way I've heard to someone say, go touch grass ever.
Okay.
Catch you later.
Sand, not far from land. Sure, I'm warm, but I wish I was cold.